Hello, and welcome once again to the Comic Conspiracy. This is episode number 20. 20. We've broken some sort of milestone.
We're 20-something now.
Hey, Brock, is your mic on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's on. Okay, it's on. Normally, we're not recording our normal time, our normal setup. Normally, we record Monday nights now. But, we were Fridays and then Mondays, and now it's Wednesday night, and we're recording after a very, very long day because due to some personal stuff, we weren't able to record on Monday. So here we are on Wednesday, recording a quick episode. Try to get this out, talk a few things.
You just jinxed it.
No,
twice. The second time you said quick.
A serious quick episode this week.
Dude, the second time.
Because we must pimp next week's.
Yeah, this is true. Who are you, by the way?
Oh, my name is Ryan Higgins. Yeah. Hi, how are you?
You're joined by Brock Sager.
Yeah,
okay, and now that's out of the way. Pimp. Go pimp.
We must pimp, of course, next week's midnight sale for Flashpoint number 5 and Justice League number 1 happening here at Comics Conspiracy, the comic store we record, that I own, the Brock works at. We are going to be selling Flashpoint number 5 and Justice League number 1 on Tuesday, well, technically Wednesday, August 31st, 12:01 a.m.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, August 30th, we will be having a party at the store from 8 p.m. to midnight. Come down, we got free drinks, free food, hang out. A buddy of mine's going to play some music. Just cool, come talk to local comic people and just we'll toast away the DC universe at midnight and I'll sell you some comics. So, it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully this goes well for DC. We'll talk a little bit about DC's initial numbers in a little bit, but I think we want to read a few emails here before we get too far into this episode. Let me start with one, just because I wanted to kind of comment about this real quick. I got an email from Jonathan who said, "Hey, Comic Conspiracy, really like the podcast. I'm trying to get back into comics. Do you have any good suggestions?" And that's the end of the email.
What?
Jonathan, I'm totally not calling you out on this, but me and Brock get actually a fair amount of emails like this. Yeah. I would recommend two things if you're trying to get into comics or if you were into comics. One, it's really hard to suggest to someone just when they cold, what do you recommend? Because you never know what people are going to want. We have our personal favorites, but if you liked a series, if you saw the Captain America movie and liked it, if you really liked the Justice League animated series, if you tend to prefer horror or science fiction, kind of let us know, and we'll gladly make suggestions. That's what we do for a living here at the store. But if you just a blanket statement of what do you recommend, kind of hard to answer. So I have had a few emails like this, and I kind of wanted to, Jonathan, again, sorry for calling you out on this, but if you like certain movies or certain styles, let us know and we'll gladly answer. So, Jonathan, send us back. Tell us your 3 favorite movies and your 3 TV shows you're currently watching.
It's taste. If somebody's into superheroes, then we'll recommend superheroes. If somebody's into a more literary type of read, then we have that.
But even that, I find if you tell me what the movies the last 3 good movies you saw were, and the last 3 good television shows you watched, this season or this last year or whatever, if you don't watch too much TV, that's fine. Just, I can get a good judge of what you like.
All right, let's test this theory right now.
Oh, God.
So the last 3 movies I watched was Captain America.
Okay.
Green Lantern.
I already know what you like. So.
Hold on. No, hold on. Just treat it as a what if. Okay. Let's do a Marvel episode for a second. So Cap, Green Lantern, and X-Men were the last 3 movies I saw in the theater.
Okay.
Now,
without going any further, you clearly like the superhero stuff, so...
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Actually, cut out the X-Men. I saw Friends with Benefits.
Oh, okay.
And then the last 3 TV shows I watched was Dexter Season 5. Mm-hmm. Entourage Season 7.
Okay.
And why am I drawing a blank on the TV show I just finished watching?
Did you watch Burn Notice yet? The new season?
I saw Burn Notice. Okay. Yeah, the season 4.
Well,
yeah.
Brock, I would instantly say, I would recommend to you exactly what you already read, because what you read, it goes along with exactly what those type of shows you just mentioned. Clearly, you like the superhero stuff, right? With the amount of with the TV shows, I would I would directly steer you to Vertigo for series like The Losers and Scalped. And I know you're a big Sandman fan, so I may not have actually recommended Sandman because none of those seem very fantasy oriented.
Yeah.
But I would have recommended you to probably half the titles of DMZ that you already read.
Yeah.
Totally, because specifically because of the things you mentioned. Maybe some humor stuff, because things like Entourage, isn't that more of a comedy?
Yeah.
I've never really watched it, but I
Entourage it has its funny moments. It's like
a dramedy, right?
Yeah, it's like kind of a dramedy.
Right,
I mean, it has funny moments, but it's more like situational funny.
Right.
I mean, character funny sometimes too, but
yeah, no. I mean, I would totally, honestly, probably recommend you to a lot of the books you're already reading. So, I mean, yeah. So, Jonathan, sorry to put you on the spot, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, another thing, Jonathan. That's what Ryan is trying to basically say is that jumping into comic books is kind of, there's no defined point. We've mentioned this before. It's your own kind of jumping in point. So,
right.
Ryan is saying that to centralize where to jump in and best help you get an enjoyable experience about it. We're trying to get you back to the days where people would go to the corner store to get some candy and there was a spinner rack and they just grabbed a comic that looked cool and they bought it, because all of us have those stories where those were the first comics. That's how we kind of got into it was we wandered into a comic book store and just was wowed, or we saw a spinner rack and was wowed, or our uncle who was questionable gave us a box of old comics that were destroyed.
Questionable.
Hey, I'm just trying to throw out every scenario I can here. So yeah, but definitely it's I think if you're going to send us the emails for requests or where should I jump in, that's probably a good model to fill out. So fill out your last 3 movies you saw and the last 3 TV shows you watched.
Yeah. I totally. That's a question I always ask people in the store. So. Brock, I think you got an email there to read.
An email to read. Let's see here. This is from Jason. He says, I've been wanting to get into the Darkest Night / Brightest Day arc. What Darkest Night collection or Darkest...
I think he says Darkest Night, but I'm assuming he means Blackest Night.
Blackest Night collection should I get so I'm not totally confused by Brightest Day? Well, the reading list, the Green Lantern reading list is on the conspiratorbrock.blogspot.com. Right. You can easily go to there to get the reading order for Green Lantern Corps. I don't have Emerald Warriors up yet, but that doesn't tie in until after Blackest Night. So if you're looking to get into Blackest Night, I say at least read the Green Lantern stuff. Mm-hmm. You don't have to read the Green Lantern Corps, but it's a really good book. So I recommend both. If you're going to read the Blackest Night stuff, the main book is what you need to read, the Green Lantern Blackest Night and the Green Lantern Corps Blackest Night. The one maybe that I would give a recommendation is Tales of the Corps. It's a lot of one-shot kind of origin stories for a lot of the different Ring characters, like Bleeze and
I think
Saint Walker and a couple others.
What's interesting about the Blackest Night, the Brightest Day books, the Brightest Day goes in a very different direction from Blackest Night. The kind of unfortunate nature of Brightest Day is that these are characters who have been dead for a while, so they all have backstories on how they died and sort of what their new status quo is. Kind of unfortunately, unless you go back and buy all these characters' old books, you're going to have a hard time sort of sorting out who's who, because they explain it, but they don't, there's a lot of characters. And then a lot of the characters are also shown off in their own books. Flash and Green Arrow and a lot of these characters have more stories in their own titles than they do in the main book.
Yeah.
So I would say you can read Brightest Day. You can read Brightest Day pretty much cold even without reading Blackest Night.
Yeah.
If you really want to. I think it's just you're going to be it's probably a series you will want to consult Wikipedia on, unfortunately, just because these characters do have a big status quo prior to that. But listen to Brock, read Blackest Night, especially the main book and the Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps tie-ins. They're all out in softcover now as well. They came out last month.
Yeah.
So you can pick them up in hardcover. Well, the hardcovers are slowly going out of print, so maybe a little hard to find. Mm-hmm. But the softcovers are a little cheaper. So yeah,
I need to update that reading list. So I'll probably do that tomorrow.
Cool.
So, but yeah, other than that, yeah. Besides Ryan's little, you need to consult Wikipedia on some things.
Huh.
For the most part, I didn't consult Wikipedia, and I didn't really know a lot of the characters.
Yeah, you don't
have to.
Right.
So,
they give you a pretty good. I will actually highly recommend to go along with Brightest Day, which is the Justice League Generation Lost.
Oh yes, that book is phenomenal.
Brightest Day was 26 issues. 24 issues. Generation Lost was 24 issues. Or were they 24? Were they 26?
No, it was
0. Oh, it had like a 0.
Brightest Day had a 0.
Right.
So it was 25. And then Generation Lost was 26.
Was it? Well, whatever they were. Yeah. They went. One came out each week. So Brightest Day was 1 week, then then Generation Lost was the next week, then Brightest Day was the next week. So they kind of flip flop. And even though the stories are not exactly connected, the Justice League Generation Lost is a really good book. Kind of as they're trying to track down Maxwell Lord, and
Maxwell Lord plays a key role in Brightest Day.
Well, they all do technically,
but they expand more on Maxwell Lord's involvement in Brightest Day in Generation Lost.
Right.
So
all worth reading.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple more emails, but let's just read this last one. We got a few more we can use for next week. Get an email from Jameson. This person's emailed us before. I don't remember. It says, Ryan and Brooke, I've been really enjoying Booster Gold, and I am curious if you could give me the reading list for Booster Gold trades, or at least give me an idea of where to start. I'll get that, but I'll leave the second one to Brock because he's more current. Also, one more question. What are your thoughts on The Walking Dead? The current arc has kind of lost my interest. I feel like the story has been drug out. In my humble opinion, I want to know if it was just me. Severed was great, and Scott Snyder has slowly become one of my favorite comic writers. Take care.
Nice.
Good. Glad you enjoyed Severed. So it's still in my stack. I still got to read it.
What, Severed?
Yeah.
You recommended it to me, and you still haven't read it.
I did. I haven't read it yet. I mean, I've read the first few pages. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But, well, let me get Booster real quick. Brock hasn't done a list for Booster, but
Booster Gold is confusing because of all the. Well, if you look at the fan website for the chronological reading order,
no, that's not what he's asking for.
It looks ridiculous.
Don't worry about that.
But if you're trying to look for the current Booster Gold series, it is volume numbered.
Booster Gold there are about 7 books worth picking up if you want to know Booster Gold. The first one is the Showcase book, which is the whole original series from the 80s.
1 to 24?
5, yeah.
25 plus I think the Action Comics is in there as well.
There are 6 trades out of the current series, and there will probably be at least a 7th, maybe an 8th. I think an 8th. I think a 7th should take you to the end of the current run because it's about to end.
So. Yeah.
So there should be 1 or 2 more. The first 2 volumes, 52 pickup and Blue and Gold, come right out of 52. Those are written by Jeff Johns. Very good. However, and it really does set up the new status quo for Booster Gold. However, personally, and I'm a very big Jeff Johns fan, as we all know, I actually like Dan Jurgens, who is the creator that took over after him, who's also the creator of Booster Gold. I actually like his run a lot more. Not that Jeff Johns' run was bad; it was really good. But Dan Jurgens really had, I don't know, he had a really good voice for the character. They brought in Keith Giffen, who did about a year's worth or so.
No, Giffen only did
8 issues.
Giffen only did a few issues.
It seems like it ran for 8 issues.
He did like that weird, like 4 to 6 issue story arc where it was him and Blue Beetle teaming up in the magical world. And
some people haven't liked that. I know at least one person who's listening right now who's going to come in next Wednesday and be like, I hated that run of Blue Beetle. Michael Rodden is for you. But, at least I don't think he liked it. But I actually really liked his run too. So they all are very cool in their own ways. I've enjoyed them all. So I would say your best bet, start with 52 pickup. Well, I would personally start with 52, the 4-volume DC title that really gives Booster Gold his new found sense, and it really is the backstory to a lot of the stuff that goes on in the series. If you like that, start with 52 pickup and work your way on from there. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, really like it, you can go back and read the Showcase Presents.
Yeah, or you can get, the issues bound like I did.
I know. Yeah, you basically got that exact same thing bound.
Yeah.
Now, you've read Walking Dead Volume 14 yet? I'm assuming that's what he means by most current arc. I don't believe... I'm not sure if he read the current issues.
Well, as of as of now, I finished the last trade, which was 14.
14, yeah.
I kind of understand what he's saying in the sense of...
now, if he's talking about the current issues, I'm not...
I'm not caught up. I read him trade.
Right.
But I can kind of understand where he's coming from in the sense of we've spent about 2 to 2.5, maybe 3 story arcs in the same location.
Yeah.
So it's kind of feeling like it's starting to be stagnant.
Sure.
This was kind of the problem that happened when they were in the prison. Mm-hmm. In Walking Dead, there was this kind of lull period where everyone's like, oh, okay. But the thing is the way Kirkman seems to write is when you get that lull period going, normally there's something that slaps you in the face.
Sure.
That's coming up. I mean, after the prison, we had the general guy, I forget what his name is, or major or whatever.
Do you think this is a case where he kind of doesn't have an end game and we're starting to see... Because, I mean, I'm volumes behind, so I still have a long way to catch up.
Well,
is it the case where you're starting to see that this book maybe should come to an end at some point?
I think you're starting to see with Walking Dead, especially fatigued.
Yeah.
I mean, Kirkman is definitely getting fatigued. I mean, the guy's now a big head over at Image.
Sure.
He's working on Invincible.
Sure.
He's been working on Walking Dead, which are both long-running titles.
Absolutely.
That, and once you start to get going for that period of time without a real break from it, you start to stagnate and kind of, I mean, it's still good writing. Like the writing is still good in it, but there's no driving action anymore. There's no kind of feeling of, turning the page and going, oh shit, something's going to happen.
Well, I mean, everything I've heard was just a couple issues ago where, yes, something big did happen
at the end of volume 14.
So we're sort of, we're kind of getting out of that lull?
Yeah, I think we're kind of getting out of that lull. But I mean, Walking Dead is one of those series where I really, really think that it could do well from bringing in, different writers to kind of, give their little spin, because you're looking at characters. It's a character pieces.
I was going to say, but before you get too far with that, it's funny you mentioned that because there's been a lot of talk the last couple of days. Let's see if I can find the link here. But Robert Kirkman was actually talking about people taking over for Invincible.
Yeah.
So if that is a good idea, and it's like...
For Invincible, I don't know if it'd really be a good idea for Invincible. I mean, Invincible is a stereotypical superhero character. I mean, it's just like swapping out writers on Superman or Batman.
Sure.
But I think with like Walking Dead is one of those books where I think it could benefit from, having, like, I'm just going to throw up the big ones. Like if Grant Morrison decided to come in and do an issue or a short story arc in this world. If Johns decided to do an issue or a story arc again in this world, if even Bendis decided to come in and do a story arc, I think it would benefit like a book like Walking Dead. Invincible, I mean, you could throw somebody on there, but with that, you kind of risk losing people.
Sure. Well, specifically, I mean, I haven't heard the interview. It's a word balloon interview with Robert Kirkman, which is a podcast. But buddy of mine, Graham McMillan, wrote this on Robot 6. He said, Kirkman talked about his desire to see Invincible continue with different creative teams after he's done with the book. Just it'd be interesting to see, I mean, if he's planning to really end the title,
Yeah.
I mean, or if he's... wants to leave it himself and just work on Walking Dead specifically. And then there may also be the burnout of Walking Dead, the TV show, mixed with Walking Dead, the comic, mixed with Walking Dead. So, I mean, even the best creators have off days, have arcs that don't really work. I mean, I know we've talked numerous times about Preacher, and a lot of people feel the, Salvation arc. Is the one.
It's a thick volume to begin with. It's the thickest volume, I think, out of all of them.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, just find that that's a arc that it sort of doesn't really go quite where people thought it would.
What's funny? I really enjoyed Salvation. Because, I mean, at first it's really jarring.
Yeah.
But as you get into Salvation, it's a really, really good read just because we get we take a step back and we look at these characters again kind of in a new light.
Sure.
And plus the fact that you got the meat guy in there.
Oh, I mean, it's a great arc.
Oh,
I still like it, but a lot of people found that arc to be sort of the low point, sort of the slowest.
Well, I mean, the first 3 trades are smacking you across the face, and then you get the 4th trade, which is the soft covers, at least.
Sure.
The 4th trade is the origins of, like, the Saint of Killers and, all these people.
Horseface.
Yeah, Horseface. And then you get back to speed with 5 and 6, but Salvation is 7, where it slows, and then we have 8 and 9.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a weird beat in the series, but it's one of the most intriguing ones, because it strips everything down, and we kind of don't, it's not all in your face.
Sure.
But it's like Preacher ended, but I mean, again, it's like Garth Ennis has been doing a lot of work after Preacher, but nothing's really, stood up to that.
Punisher, I would say, is as good, or not as good, as successful as Preacher. Maybe not in a single trade collection, but Punisher was a very successful book for Marvel.
Yeah. Well, I liked his the last mini he did, Punisher Warzone.
Yeah.
Where it was against the crime family.
Yeah.
That one was really cool.
Okay, well, there you go. There's some that's some stuff.
There's some boring talk.
No, not boring at all.
You're boring.
Am I boring?
Always.
Let's see. We have 2 news stories to kind of talk about. We'll do some random picks and we'll get out of here and have maybe a bigger episode next week. 2 stories. The first, Brock wanted to talk quickly about Atomic Comics, which is a shop that closed in Arizona.
Yeah,
I actually want to talk about that next week when we have more time to kind of go into it. So if people are interested in this, you can look it up. We'll talk more about this at length next week. But the 2 things I want to talk quick about this week is DC did not officially announce, but they have stated that Justice League #1 has more than 200,000 pre-orders. So that's through Diamond Comics. That is, comic shops have ordered over 200,000 copies of Justice League #1, and 6 other #1s have more than 100,000 pre-orders. That comes from the new 52 books that start coming out next week. Mm-hmm. While a very good amount of books those are, there's some kind of caveats there. So, real quick, kind of numbers. I'm pulling these from the beat right now. A couple numbers to throw with those numbers. The last time a comic topped 200,000 copies was Amazing Spider-Man 583, which is the Obama issue, with 352,000 copies. Secret Invasion #1 was 250,000 copies. The last DC book was August 2006 with 212,000 copies, which was JLA #1. My only concern about these numbers for 200,000 copies is, and then the 100,000 copies is, one, so I ordered 200 copies, right?
Yeah.
So that's 1,000 stores ordering 200 copies. Mm-hmm. I don't see, that seems really low to me. I would have expected JLA to break, because there's about 17 to 1,800 comic shops, like full service comic shops, and probably another 1,000 that carry them as a sideline. This is sort of estimated numbers. So you're talking, most stores ordered less than 100. I mean, if your average is probably less than 100 copies per store, I find that really depressing, because I consider us a small store.
Yeah.
And if we're probably way over the national average, am I crazy, or is everyone else under ordering? And my other question is, I ordered other books at the same level as Justice League, and I ordered many books at the 100 mark or higher. They only have 6 break 100,000 copies. Now, there is a bit of a thing here where these books are, a percent of them are returnable, which is something that comics normally aren't. So I'm taking a bit of a risk away by being able to return some of these copies. So if these were non-returnable, I would probably order a little bit less, but especially for the #1s, I don't think I would really order that many less on these books. Mm-hmm. I may have been down 25%. but it wouldn't be like 75. I wouldn't order like 50 copies of JLA number one.
I think you also have to look at the kind of temperament of comic books right now, in the sense of we've had this announcement since June.
Mm-hmm.
And, people have been expecting this.
Sure.
And I think the general vibe out there, DC was pumping out the general vibe of this positive vibe at the San Diego Con and obviously at Baltimore. But I think that in general, comic book fans that are going into shops and ordering you see it more than I do, but you have your people that are, I'm going to get all of the number ones.
Sure. We got actually a pretty good amount right now.
Pretty good amount.
Yeah.
But you also have a lot of people that are like, well, I got a list of stuff that I want, but I don't want anything else.
Yeah.
Well, so I
even
think
that 200, I'm even thinking I may have ordered too low on that. Well,
that's the other thing. For this store, you may have ordered too low for that.
But I can't imagine. The amount of interest I've seen in this blows everything else away.
Well, you also
that I've seen in years.
You also have to look at predominantly where are these shops located? If these are mom and pop shops in the Midwest, they're not going to be ordering as many copies.
Maybe 20 copies is a lot. Maybe
for them. 20 copies is a lot. But that
puts this rinky-dink store into the top 300 stores in the country, and I have a hard time believing that, or top 500 stores in the country.
Dude, you are a great... We have a great store here.
Not saying it's not a great store. I'm saying we're not a big store.
No, we're not, size-wise, we're not. Trust me. I've seen the back room. I want to blow it up.
I would have a hard time believing that there aren't 1,000 stores or 500 stores that should be ordering more than us.
But that's the other thing is look at... look at the stores that, let's say... I think there's a comic book store outside of 45 minutes away from Mount Vernon, Illinois.
Okay.
And it looked like a sizable shop when I looked it up online when I was visiting. I never got the chance to go out there, so I don't know. But this shop isn't necessarily going to, size-wise, order more, because the fact of the matter is also look at what's going on. Day and date digital. For the people that are having, that live an hour and a half from their local comic book store, can now download them onto whatever reading device they want to read them at.
Sure.
I think that possibly what it is a lot of these places were, they saw that it was returnable, so that was making them want to maybe order more. But when they saw the day and date digital and they kind of weighed it out, it seemed like they needed to order a safe amount. And with the way DC has been with their reorders, why do I need to order an initial large amount of this book if I can call in a year and still order number one?
But DC's not overprinting to that degree.
I understand they're not doing that, but that's the thing is what DC has put forward for the past couple of years is they don't do second prints all the time. You have it's exceedingly easy to get back issues ordered and restocked. It's one of those things where DC, carries. They understand that they might not sell out initially, but if they sell out, they need to have that restock. That's not a second print or a third print variant.
Yeah,
Marvel likes to do the second day. So I think that maybe shops are kind of weighing where this is going with everything. So maybe that's why your orders seem higher than other store orders. I don't know. I assume that you're going to sell out a decent amount of, books that are on at least not Tuesday night, but at least Wednesday. And by the weekend, hopefully you'll sell out.
Well, I don't know. I think the numbers I ordered will not sell out. I think I ordered some of these books specifically knowing I'm going to have to return copies, but I'm willing to take the gamble that I want copies on the shelf one way or another. And my fear is that a lot of stores order to sell out. And I'll tell you, what a way to kill the industry that you're trying to promote and trying to bring up. This is a chance where DC's given stores almost. If they had made the returnability free, I could see people going crazy. I understand the need to make there be some cost to the returnability. Is 20 cents a comic. But if you can't stock another extra 10, 20 copies, you're talking $4. One comic pays for 10. Well, two comics pay for 10. Two comics pay for 15. It's I think there is enough that you could take that risk on some of these titles. But I don't know.
But again, it's
I just expected bigger numbers. But we'll see when we get the final number.
Well, and that's the other thing is I mean, look at the industry as a whole. You were spouting off numbers from before Justice League of America back in August of 2006,
and that's with no returnability.
And no returnability. But you also have to look at what were the numbers for number 2, what were the numbers for number 3.
Yeah, it goes down.
The thing is this is the same cycle we've seen over and over again and again. And in this economy, a lot of comic book stores are barely scraping by.
No, I understand.
To stay open. So taking a $2, $4 risk might seem, inconsequential. Did I even use that word right?
Yeah.
Sweet. But for them, that $2 to $4 is whether or not I can get the books from the dock to my store because of gas.
If you're running a retail store and you're worrying about $2 or $4, you have other worries. You have other concerns to worry about. The thing is, to make money, you have to spend money. That's the bottom line.
Well, no, that's the universal truth.
Marvel, as much as I like to bag on Marvel, I give Marvel credit, even though I don't take advantage of it a lot of time. They offer some crazy deep discounting on their books. I don't like jumping through the weird hoops they have in order to get them, but for the stores that can get them, they're obviously very profitable. If you're a retailer, you can get some of these books pretty damn cheap from Marvel for these new number ones. Really promote, really push the books. Due to the sales in our store and the size of our store, these books are aimed more at Midtown Comics, not Comics Conspiracy.
Yeah.
DC with the returnability has made this available to pretty much any store that wants to take advantage of it. And it's I just expected bigger numbers. I don't know. When we get the actual numbers, we'll see.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah.
Because that's all we can do is hope.
The only other thing I want to talk about this week, Brock, I don't think I've linked you to this, so I'll show you this later. But Grant Morrison had a kind of 2-part interview in Rolling Stone magazine, which it's funny because when I people are like, oh my God, did you read this interview? And I was like, oh, what did he say? So I went and read it, and I was like, okay, this is Grant Morrison Primer 101. Like, I read, there was one interview where he was kind of talking about his life and super gods, and I was like, yep, this is all the stuff I already knew and everything he talked about in Walking with Gods?
No,
Talking with Gods.
Talking with the Gods, the documentary, and the opening chapter of Super Gods.
Right, and so I'm like, yeah, I've this is nothing new, okay? Mm-hmm. And then I read this. He had this sort of this quick kind of Q&A where he was pretty open about a lot of subjects, but again, nothing that if you know comics, you've heard all this before. So he's talking about wanting to hit Mark Miller with a car at 100 miles an hour. He's talking.
I thought that was you.
No. They were like, Mark Miller was his protege, and they had a big fight.
Yeah, because weren't they working on Justice League together? No, what were they working on?
Miller did some work on. Basically, Morrison had Mark Miller do a lot of kind of work under him and helped him on a lot of series and co-wrote a lot of stuff with him and never put his name on it. And Miller went to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And Morrison kind of didn't. So, and they're talking about, he's talking about, the desperation of comics, and DC is really trying to ramp something up. And then, he's saying, they asked, do you think this is the death spiral of comics? And he's like, yeah, I kind of do. But again, you can always be wrong. There's a real feeling of things just going off the rails, to be honest. Superhero comics, the concept is quite a ruthless concept, and it's moved on. It's kind of abandoned the first stage rocket. Talking about, things like, trying to move into movies and trying to move into shorter fiction and trying to move away from things. He brings up like The Simpsons and pop music, where it's like kind of these things never change. And it's just, it sounds like he's talking in a lot of the way that most people are talking about comics, is that, comics are the best they've probably ever been, but the sales are the worst they've ever been. And this is something that's very common in quality does not equal sales. That's at the end of the day. So, reading this interview, it's an interesting interview, but it's nothing I haven't really heard before. And so it was just so weird that so many people were like, oh my God, Grant Morrison tell-all interview. I'm like, yeah, but he's told this all 100 times. So.
Well, he's told this to the comic book fans. Much.
These are the comic guys. These are the hardcore Morrison fans. I know going, oh my God, did you read this interview? All right.
Well, it's because it's in a different format. It's in Rolling Stone
I guess,
magazine.
I guess. It's the same as everything else I've read, so.
I don't know. For me.
Let's get an interview. Go check it out.
Well, yeah, just shoot it to me if you can. You never
Rolling Stone, Grant Morrison.
Yeah, okay, boom.
First two links.
Fine, okay. I'm going to kill you.
No, but I told you. I'll link you to it.
No, I think it's one of those things where, like you said, it's comics today are... The quality is amazing coming out with a lot of comics, except for Marvel.
Hey.
Shit.
I promised no more Marvel bashing.
Who'd you promise?
I promised Mike Rubin no more Marvel bashing. Our good customer, Mike Rubin. He came in today. He said, I love your podcast, but it's too much Marvel bashing.
Oh, Mike.
And I'm like,
Mike.
I'll tone it down.
All right, we'll try to tone it down.
Tone it down, bro.
Tone it down.
Like, you watch yourself.
Turning it down. Brubaker's good.
Brubaker is really good.
Yeah. Okay.
We have really nice things. We're talking about FF. Hickman's run on FF and the Fantastic Four books. I sold him the first 4 volumes, and he loved them. Yeah. And I'm like, I want more of this. Great Marvel stuff.
I couldn't get into the Hickman stuff, but I can see where the appeal is. But I got into the Hickman stuff where it was that I'm going to tell you a little story and then have a 1-page summary of the stuff that happened.
I hate to say I actually kind of like that.
I couldn't say that. Anyway.
Go on.
Back to, but yeah, it's one of those things where, yeah, there are some great comic books coming out now. The quality of comic books nowadays is far better than it was 10, 20 years ago. But it's still, I think comic books still have that stigma of, if I went and bought, a volume 1 of something and gave it to somebody and said, dude, read this, they'd be like, why are you handing me a comic book? With kids, it's easy. You buy anything that has colorful superheroes on it, they will eat that stuff up. But, like, if I was to go to a friend of mine and I know what he likes and all this, and I handed him a comic, like a trade, he probably wouldn't read it because there's the stereotype of,
I know.
It's a comic book.
I know.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I think comic books are in a weird position right now, especially with the films, with, a lot of stories that just kind of, I don't know, we're turning the wheels, and we're trying to figure out where we're going to go, which is what DC's trying to do.
Yeah, they're just
with
trying
this 52 initiative.
Some of the books are kind of old school, some of them are new school, some of them are totally different, some of them will fail after 6 issues. So, yeah, we'll get something different out of it, but that's cool. Yeah.
I mean, I'm hopeful, but I've definitely for the past few weeks noticed there's been a weird air in the shop, especially when I've been here, of people kind of just, well, these books are coming out, I'm kind of going through the motions, and I don't really...
Well, this is what Dan Didio said at the retailer meeting in L.A. He said, look, if people drop a book, an issue or two from the end of a story, they didn't like the book in the first place. We need to stop that. And that's... Well... but you know what? Honestly... I've had people left and right picking up the last issue. Somebody like Detective, Batman, Superman.
Well, I've been pumping the shit out of 904.
People have been picking up the last issues to be like, yeah, I just want to check it out. I haven't read Superman in years. As the last issue, I'll read it and I'll be back for the new issue when it comes out. And I guarantee you, Marvel's going to do the same thing. Give them 18 months. I know we talked about this a few episodes ago, but I don't see how it can backfire on them. I think they'll do it.
Yeah, we'll see. All
right,
again, everyone go out and get your copy of Action Comics number 904, the last sequentially numbered comic book from DC Comic Books. Yeah. It's the end of a 70-year era.
You may not have, I think, someone at Baltimore, someone at one of the conventions, I heard this quote. They said, you may not have issue 1000, but you'll have a thousandth issue.
Yeah, it was at the Baltimore Comic Con. I forgot who said it.
Yeah,
I commented on the blog, but I don't know. I'm still sore as shit.
Don't get so attached.
Still sore as shit about it.
Don't get so attached.
Because
as a super casual new fan compared to me, don't be so attached, Brock. You and your kids and you upstarts trying to be all like, I'm hip, I'm cool, look at me, I know comics. Oh shit, I'm gonna get mad about something on the internet. Dude, don't be that guy. Us old timers, 20 years, baby. 20 years straight.
Are you high?
No,
right now?
I'm just saying. I know 20 years isn't a lot compared to probably a lot of people listening to the podcast.
Yeah, because you know what that 20 years is? What? The modern era.
Yeah, well, 30, 40 years is modern era.
I'm just waiting for the rejiggered to be the name for the Wikipedia entry.
Friggin' ass.
It's going to be the rejiggered era. It's going to go from the modern era to the rejiggered era.
So, my random comic pick of the week for this week.
Put the comic book up so you don't have to look at me.
Yes, oh God.
Do that.
I'd rather stare at, actually, this really terrible drawing than you. Sorry, Tim Seeley.
So, what? You're recommending a book that has crappy art?
No, it's just this variant cover is not so good.
Oh, okay.
So, for those who listen to the Geek Box, which is the other podcast we record, you may have heard myself occasionally mention that I'm a fan of The Forgotten Realms, which is a Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting.
Yeah, how are those books, by the way?
Pretty good. I've read...
Sitting on your shelf?
Which ones? I've read many Forgotten Realms books.
Yeah, how many are there total?
Thousands.
There's not thousands of books.
There is multiple hundred books. When you compare the novels, there is probably, if you take into account Dragon and Dungeon Magazine and you read the short stories that are in there is probably over 1,000 stories written, whether it's a 500-page novel or a short story in Dungeon or Dragon, plus the books. There's easily 1,000 books.
Now, is it Dungeons or Dragon, or is it Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, it's Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, just checking.
So, I'm a fan of Forgotten Realms, and even though I've been a fan of the Realms, the one area of the Realms I've never actually read in the comics is the R.A. Salvatore Drizzt Do'Urden series. It is very, very famous set of books written that take place in the Forgotten Realms. In this character named Drizzt, he's an elf. He's a dark elf ranger.
Ooh, dark elf.
He's awesome. But it's one of those things where
World of Warcraft.
It's like I've read little bits and chunks of all the Forgotten Realms stuff, but I've never read the Drizzt stuff. I've only read the comic adaptations. Well, R.A. Salvatore and his son have come out with a new Drizzt comic, which I will recommend. It's my pick of the week this week as well.
Are you actually going to read it?
I will read it. So, IDW has published actually a lot of different comics. They do the Star Trek comic. They have a new comic coming out based on the new movie continuity. They do the old Star Trek stuff. They do Transformers. They do G.I. Joe.
They're going to be releasing the Star Trek Legion crossover because DC doesn't want to take the load.
Right, and now they've been doing D&D books for the last year, and now they've got this it's listed under Neverwinter Tales, but Neverwinter is one of the cities, and it's Forgotten Realms. So yeah, I'm actually super excited for this. IDW has pretty high production quality on their books. I've liked the Transformers books. I haven't really gotten into the G.I. Joe. Godzilla's 50-50. Two of them are good, or one of them is good. But this looks pretty good. The D&D book has been okay, but this looks much better. I'm actually really excited for this. So this will be one of the first books I read when I have some time this weekend because I'm excited. Drizzt Do'Urden's a pretty badass character, and I want to see what they're going to... I'm probably butchering his name too, but I believe Drizzt Do'Urden. That's how I've always pronounced it. So, I mean, I've been pronouncing it that way since I was like 12 years old. I have no idea if that's actually how it's pronounced, but that's how I say it. Yeah. Drizzt. Drizzt. Yeah. Drizzt. So yeah, looks cool. I'm super excited to read this book. I would say check it out. R. Salvatore is he's like a New York Times bestseller author. Should be pretty good. So I don't usually recommend stuff I haven't actually read yet, but since this is my pick of the week, I figure, what the heck? See, people mistake our staff picks of the weeks for stuff that we've read and enjoyed. It's just stuff we were looking forward to.
We're looking forward to, or we enjoy the series, so we picked it, or
right. It's not always do we have time to read all these books before. In fact, we never have time to read all these books before.
And a lot of times we're all reading the same stuff and enjoying the same stuff, so it's kind of like, well, let's change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, even though I seem to be the Vertigo pick guy, but at least I'm not on Northlanders.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Don't really like that book.
What's your pick?
My pick is Manhunter.
Hey.
The series that came out, oh God, how do you say his name? Mark and
Draco.
And Draco, with Jesus Saiz as the penciler.
Yep.
Manhunter is basically God, what's her? Kate Spencer.
Yep.
She puts on a costume and kills villains.
So Manhunter is like an older DC character. There were several incarnations. Manhunter, not to totally take over your recommendation real quick.
No, do the back history, because the only Manhunter I know is her.
Yeah. I've never read any of the old stuff either. This is the only actual Manhunter book I've read. But much like James Robinson's Starman, this is sort of a character where it's like a new incarnation, but it still ties in with the older stuff. They bring up the old Manhunter characters in numerous times. Not to be confused with Manhunters, the Green Lantern villains. This is Manhunter.
Yeah, it's
not
Manhunters. So, really good. Really enjoyed it. It
launched out of Identity Crisis as well.
Yes. And I think it ran for 5 trades.
That sounds right.
Really good read. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much I started picking up the single issues.
Yeah.
And then they canceled the series 3 years ago?
A couple years ago. They brought it back as a backup.
Yeah, there was
She's been in a lot of the stuff with she's been involved with like the Birds of Prey stuff.
The Birds of Prey stuff, The Question,
right.
Huntress,
right.
A couple other characters. Really, really good.
I like her. I mean, she's a DA. Mm-hmm. She actually came into Gotham City for a while.
Yeah.
It was the DA Gotham City, and she takes a bunch of costume pieces from Lockup and wears them. She wears a Dark Star costume. She has one of Azrael's like bow staffs.
Yeah.
And she has all these different weapons from all these different heroes, and she goes out and she kills the villains.
Yeah.
Just because she's like, F this, I'm sick of defending.
Kind of like the Dexter mentality, where you know, these guys get off on being insane or whatever the reason is, and she goes out and she finishes the job that you know the justice system couldn't do.
Yeah.
So
it's a good book. She employs villains to help her kill villains and stuff. It sounds super, super dark. It's actually not quite as dark as I'm making it out to be, but there are dark.
And the funny thing about it is it's not necessarily a superhero book in the sense of there's a lot more. It's more along the lines of like a drama.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you see more character development, you see more characters, and she puts on a costume later. So it's kind of, we see her in the costume a decent amount, but we also get her out of the costume a lot.
Right.
Which I think is what they've been, like, Marvel's been doing a really good job with Spider-Man and Amazing.
Yeah. Is
giving us the Peter Parker side of it, but also giving us the Spider-Man side and balancing out kind of the secret identity with the, the superhero identity. Right. So definitely pick up Manhunter. It's a fun read. And, the art's kind of darkish and reminds me, at least the covers remind me of Jay Lee. But,
it is. Cover in that trade, yeah. That's Jay Lee.
That is Jay Lee?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But the artwork inside is really good.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So, yeah, pick up Manhunter.
Excellent.
And it's a chick, not a man. So.
All right. That's going to be it for this week. If you are around Sunnyvale next Tuesday at 8 p.m., you should come down and say hey. Come down and be at the store for our party. It could be a party. Free food. How can you go wrong? We'll be back next week. The plan, I think, was we're just going to record Monday. We were talking about trying to do some recording on Tuesday, with the party and the record. I just don't think it would work out properly. So maybe we'll set up a mic and we can have people just come in and record stuff, and we'll kind of figure.
That's what I figured. I mean, why don't we do like small little candidate interviews you just loop it together. All you got to do is kind of just do that.
Sure. I mean, we'll try to figure something out. So yeah. Other than that, go visit www.geekbox.net. You can find this episode and other episodes there. You can go visit comicsconspiracy.biz. That's comics with an S. You can find store info there. We have our little online store. You can go to order stuff through that. conspiratorbrock.blogspot.com. That's Brock's blog. Go check out his reading list. Check out that Blackest Night, Brightest Day reading list stuff. So you got there if you're interested in that. Probably put a Manhunter one up at some point too. There's only 5 trades, but
I've been doing that recently. Like Preacher, I put all of them up. So
absolutely.
There'll be a Manhunter reading list.
Cool. If you have any questions, comments, emails, complaints, death threats, send them to The Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net, or you can actually go to geekbox.net and there's a contact us page there, and you can pull down for Comic Conspiracy, and you can send it directly to us there if you don't send an email. But either way, it works.
You're on the tweets.
I'm on the Twitter. Ryan Higgins Ryan. Brock's not on the Twitter.
No.
I Are you on the Google Plus still?
I'm on the Google Plus.
Are you using that? I don't.
I don't use it a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, but I do want to say, if you're on my blog, please like comments, like posts, +1 posts, right? Cool. Spread the word a little bit.
All right.
I hate being the only loser that +1's my own shit.
Oh, that's sad.
Higgins doesn't even come in +1 my shit.
I don't read your
blog.
blog.
What a douche.
I don't read anything.
You don't read anything.
I don't read anything on the internet, no. Or in real life. All right. We will talk to you guys next week.